Hello and welcome to Minerals, Rocks, and Fossil Talks. I'm your paleo teacher, Jen, and it's time for some Fossil Friday. So, who's ready to take a more in-depth look at our favorite giant sea scorpion? Yeah, I'm sure you all are. This is Jaekelopterus rhenaniae, and it was a beast of an animal. It lived during the early Devonian period from 419 to about 393 million years ago in Germany. It was discovered by this fellow here, Otto Jaekel, a German paleontologist, in 1914. However, when he found it, he thought it was a species of Pterygotus, which is another type of Eurypterid that's very, very closely related to Jaekelopterus. Now, it wasn't until 1964 when British paleontologist Charles D. Watterson decided that it was distinct enough to have its own genus that he erected the name Jaekelopterus to honor the original discoverer. Incidentally, while looking for information on Jaekelopterus, I found out that a little over a year ago this man died at 99 years old, which is an impressively long life, so good for him. It was found in the Klurf Formation, which was a siltstone and sandstone deposited in an estuary or deltaic system. This means that Jaekelopterus lived in brackish water. So it was not a sea scorpion, it was a deltaic scorpion, if you will. And somehow that's more terrifying than it just living in the ocean, because there's lots of terrifying things that live in the ocean. Typically, we find the deltas are a little safer. Unless you happen to live somewhere like Mississippi, where you know there will be alligators or crocodiles. The type specimen is actually only known from isolated remains of its chelicera, or modified mouth parts that are either fangs or pincers. And in the case of Jaekelopterus, pincers. Now, this particular body part means that it is in the subphylum Chelicerata within the phylum Arthropoda. And within this subphylum of Chelicerata, its closest living relatives are the arachnids, meaning spiders, scorpions, ticks, and all of their relatives. Within the Eurypterid clade, Jaekelopterus was part of the smaller clade Pterygotioidea. And this clade had the largest of all the Eurypterids, as you can see here. Got everything from almost 2 feet long to almost 9 feet long, which is our Jaekelopterus. I mean, insane. So, how did Jaekelopterus and its cousins get so big? Because typically factors such as respiration and molting and locomotion, the exoskeleton, they all have huge impacts on how big an arthropod can get. Other than the robust chelicera, most of the preserved body segments are thin and unmineralized, which suggests that these animals were very lightweight. So they may be big, like body size, but they don't weigh very much. There are other arthropods that are smaller that would have been heavier. Jaekelopterus had compound eyes like many other arthropods. Not real scorpions, though. Real scorpions actually have a pupil, and they don't see very well. However, Eurypterids, like Jaekelopterus, had high visual acuity, as suggested by the low interometidial angle, hopefully I said that right, which is the angle between the optical axes of adjacent lenses, and the fact that they had so many lenses in their eyes. They also had stereoscopic vision, like most predators, as in, binocular. Most predators will have that binocular stereoscopic vision because it makes hunting easier. And structurally, their eyes are almost identical to horseshoe crabs, which are a slightly more distant relative of theirs. The enlarged chelicerae were well adapted for puncturing and grasping prey, just like extant crustaceans, another distant relative, and scorpions. In fact, some Devonian fish fossils from Utah show puncture wounds that were likely caused by the smaller Jaekelopterus howelli. I can talk, I promise. Jaekelopterus was likely an agile predator possessing high maneuverability. The hydromechanics of its paddles suggested that it was capable of hovering, forward locomotion, and quick turns, so it would have been quite terrifying to come across. Well, I hope you had fun learning a little bit more about Jaekelopterus, and tune in Monday to learn about the native metal gold. I will fossilize you later.